Keith Earls that's come back from injury, and I'm like, how the heck is he doing that at age 35? I'm like, what is it?
Still a bit of pace to him. He took off. I was like, holy Lord.
What water is he drinking here up in Limerick and Cork? So,
Joe presents House of Rugby, United Rugby Championship, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.
Hello and welcome back to House of Rugby. I'm Greg O'Shea and we're here together with Bank of Ireland. We have a special show today, guys. Of course, we have Lindsay Peat here as always. How are you doing, Lindsay?
I'm good. Nervous.
You're doing good? Yeah, you're nervous. Yeah, you fangirl a little bit. We're going to have to let you calm down because...
Well, obviously I'm nervous about the amazing legends to my left, but I'm also nervous about the abuse you're going to hurl at me.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to riddle you with the whole with the big win. But we have a special person in today, guys. Hall of Famer. He's done it all. Won all the cups all over the world. Played in France. Played in South Africa. I can't wait to get talking to him. We've Mr. Bryan Habana here. How are you doing, fella?
great to be in the city of Dublin. A lot warmer than I thought it would be. Not quite the Marseille week we had for Champions Cup last season, but it's good to be in the north of the equator.
Yeah, you're here for the final, obviously the European final.
Yeah, for the Champion and Challenge Cup happening this weekend. So doing a bit of work with CJ Stander. I want to say he's a local favourite.
Yeah.
With South African flavour.
Yeah.
So myself and CJ doing some content for DHL throughout the course of the week, getting to know Dublin and trying to give those coming to Dublin for the final this weekend a little bit of direction to what is the attractions in this beautiful city.
Nice.
It should be good, yeah. Should be very good.
Okay.
You've sampled a few already, have you?
I had a few rollies this
Lovely.
morning. I went for full Irish breakfast. I had a taste of the white pudding. Lee McKenzie will be very happy for me. The black pudding, although it just had to sit in the corner. But a brilliant, as TJ said, I found out that a dry up is actually for those that have a very big Saturday night after rugby, and a dry up should be good. Fry up.
Fry up.
A fry up. So avoided the black pudding and then went to Il Valentino's for an incredible croissant selection. I mean, they literally had
You've had a great morning.
Chocolate. It's a busy morning, and then the pleasure of sitting with you two and having,
Well,
having
you're
a bit of
welcome.
crack.
We're good hosts, aren't we? Brought the weather, the food, hopefully a bit of personality this morning. So hopefully you'll be back.
More yours than Greg's, please.
You're welcome.
Me and Bryan flew in from Toulouse
Yeah.
over the last couple of days, and you were handing out the medals to the Australian women's team. You should have seen the rain, Lindsay. It was biblical.
No, it was.
And poor Bryan, right? Poor Bryan Habana out there in his t-shirt, his skin-tight t-shirt.
No, it was good. Double XL.
And the rain just came pouring down. And in fairness to Bryan now, he went over and got an umbrella and held it up over... Who were you holding up over?
Niall Williams for her interview. Incredible what she's given the game of rugby. And I was like, I think if it wasn't a last tournament, I probably wouldn't have had that chivalry. The cameraman was absolutely soaked. Poor Jamie Lyle was. And I was like, nah, Niall needs her moment because it was absolutely disastrous, that rain.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe the New Zealanders didn't end that the All Black game like 7 minutes earlier by the wind, because the extra time meant that the rainstorm happened 10 minutes after that. But what a career Niall Williams has had. I think what she's given the game, and then sort of the Aussie women's going in and out for their medals. But brilliant weekend to lose. Also wasn't as warm as last year. Last year was like 35 degrees, so I couldn't get out my budgies this time around, unfortunately.
It was very hormonal, yeah. But the chivalry is definitely not dead. He stood there for the whole thing and held the umbrella up and you got soaked.
I'd expect nothing less from this man, and huge shout out to Niall. She's had a great career, and I was kind of sad to see it end, because she's still so much she gave.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously fitting how she ended. I think winning, and just in the manner in which they did the haka for her, especially, which I filmed, and you do get emotional. I think when you've gone through that phase of sort of transitioning out of the game and you've given it so much, but I think the respect that her teammates and World Rugby showed her, to have that send off in Toulouse, getting the haka done for her was pretty special, and kudos to her. I think she's given the game so much, been an inspiration for so many, both on and off the field, coming back from injuries, after giving birth, and incredible what she's achieved. And this Black Ferns team, means something special, but what a send off.
Oh, hugely. And as a mammy with two young women, and to have that role model at home and be that mother and juggle it all, I have to say it's I'm in awe of her anyway. I have to say. So congratulations.
And an incredible rugby player.
Incredible rugby player, yeah. Well, maybe should be
better
like
than her brother, I'd say.
You're still playing away even though you're retired. Maybe Niall Williams will keep playing when she goes back down to New Zealand. Who knows?
Maybe she'll go to 15s and I can
she's
transition to 7s.
Niall's going to league.
Oh, she's going to league.
Yeah,
she's doing some leagues. So I mean, she's stepping away from rugby union, but in 7s. But still,
she'll be just home more now.
Yeah, she'll be home a lot more. But there's definitely still some good to go in that body of hers. Yeah. She's looking in incredible shape. And she went really well this weekend. So rugby league's getting a good one. A real good one.
For sure. And a shout out to the Irish women's 7s team who qualified for the Olympics, which was amazing. Yeah. Unreal.
Incredible celebrations on Sunday night at the World Rugby Sevens Women's Awards ceremony.
We do a lot of things well, especially celebrations.
Yeah. Apparently they needed to calm down at about 6 because they qualified like 3 o'clock that afternoon. And apparently they needed to calm down just in time for the awards. So they ordered pizzas. And then the celebrations, well, first the awards and then the celebrations. But led impeccably well by the Irish on Sunday night in Toulouse.
They started celebrating straight away, and I got back to the hotel. I was staying in the same hotel as the Irish women, and a couple of them had to go to bed before going to the awards. Like they were accused. Yeah. They started celebrating from the second they won. Yeah. Then they had to play Japan, and obviously that didn't go well. But how could you calm back down to play Japan? But well done to the girls. It's so good, and they have a full year now ahead of the Olympics, which is amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. Team. And there's a lot of players giving a lot. Like Lucy Mulhall has been there from the OG, as I suppose you call her, and Amy Lee and Stacey, and who's gone through a lot of ups and downs and peaks and troughs. And I think as saying goes, you create your own story. And I suppose there's been a lot of chat for us with our senior 15s women's, and you'd be hard not to get, I suppose, offended with all the arguments, as players. And we said this in the show, we want everyone in an Irish jersey to do well. So huge congrats, huge.
And sets an incredible standard for the men to follow.
It does,
which is almost scary. There's only one place left up for qualification. The Irish lads probably won't get into that and sort of go the 2 tournaments coming up in terms of trying to get there. But I mean, it's an incredible standard that the Irish women have set on the 7th circuit, and actually a few OGs. But again, being that inspiration in a very, I want to say, tough environment from a negotiation and a place of just pure equality. But if they producing the goods on the field, it just gives them that much more ability to go in with a lot of positive confirmation in terms of potential chats that need to be had.
Well, hopefully now the lads can follow in suit and get qualified for this Olympics. But we'll deal with that at another stage because we want to move on to the biggest event of the weekend, really. Munster versus Leinster. It was just poetic.
Did you bring that crystal ball with you, or was
did you say, Brian? I'm sure you saw my prediction.
Well, before we go there, I'm hoping that crystal ball is saying something different for the Stormers ahead of that Munster final down in Cape Town in a few weeks at DHL Stadium. It was absolutely epic. As finals go, I did it last year as well. I sort of called it, there's no chance that Leinster are going to lose. 5 weeks at the Aviva, the team they have, the players they have. But what an ending to an incredible. And again, you got to do a chapeau tip to the way Munster played in that game. I think the physicality that they brought up against an impressive Leinster squad, and to finish off in the way they did. There was huge celebrations, not only up at the Aviva, but down in Cape Town as well. The boys.
I saw that. Yeah, is that because it's a home fixture or because it's Munster?
No, because they get to be at home. No. So I think Munster are the only team the Stormers have lost at DHL Stadium in the last year. So they already know that it's going to be an incredibly tough game, whether it be Leinster and Munster. But to not have to travel now, up to the north again, host another back-to-back final at DHL Stadium, sending Captain Courageous Stephen Kitsoff Spicy Plum off with a hopeful bang. Spicy Plum. It really is, stuff that epic endings are made of. So the boys actually celebrated appropriately that they don't have to get an economy flight to go from Cape Town to Doha to Dublin.
I'd say they're sick of that journey. Jesus. Just clean the chocks, pack them again, and off you go.
Pack them again.
So. Yeah. Well, they get another crack off Munster, which is what they probably want, and it's going to be an epic final down in Cape Town. That stadium is beautiful. But why do you think? I don't know. Leinster's team, their lineup wasn't their starting lineup. Wasn't their
I was kind of a bit upset, actually. Not upset. Upset's a bit dramatic. I was a bit taken back as the selection, if I'm honest.
Do you think it was a little bit of a disrespect?
Yes.
Not picking their top lads, or what do you think, Brian? They did have Robbie Henshaw and people like that, but it wasn't their starting 15.
No, it wasn't their starting 15. But also, in terms of where this Leinster team is going. When you get given opportunity, if you have 100 caps for Leinster, if you have 2 caps, when you wear that jersey, you're going to be doing it with a lot of pride, and you need to be doing it proud. So I think the coaching staff mentality was probably potentially to see what these sort of potential non-starters have in their ability. And again, Munster, potentially 1 or 2 injuries as well, didn't really think they could do it. But I think the character which they showed for the full 80, to start a drop goal, minute 78, it's not just the person slotting the drop goal, it's the forwards doing their work, it's the backs, continually cleaning breakdowns. And, when it's not a high scoring game, it's the whole team. It's 1 to 23 that's playing their part. And I think that's where you sort of got to take your hat tip to, to Munster, because they stayed in it for that whole 80, which was brilliant. So I don't think it was a disrespect from Leinster perspective. For me, and as a coach, you look at these opportunities to test players, and you can then assess them. Where if you bring a player, who hasn't played a lot on in the last 5 minutes, and you're already winning, you can't really see their character. So I don't think it was disrespectful. I think it did give Munster potentially a little bit of fuel in the belly for that added extra, that they could potentially see it as a bit of arrogance from the Leinster side. But what a game.
Yeah. Well, they still had 13 internationals playing, so like.
Well, disrespect was probably wrong, but I just thought, right, okay, if we're going to catch it now in a semi-final, it's like cup rugby, it's knockout. Like, and to be honest, we didn't win any rub of the green. Like, we talk about the drop goal, which was what a set of kahunas Mr. Crowley had, but we also missed that the Coombs rip on the 75th minute against Joe McCarthy, who could have gone through. And at that stage, Leinster had so much momentum. Actually, they had started to win the gain line. You're in the 5 metre. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is the game changer. Kieran Frawley misses a conversion after that Joe McCarthy try. So you're like, it was these little moments where you're like, the Tommy O'Brien chase down, which was a great kick by Harry Byrne. And like, you're just like, it was all these defining moments where you're like, geez, he should have probably on another day would have gathered that, scored the try, and you're kind of now relieving the pressure. But I just thought Munster certainly had their homework done.
Yeah.
The double tackle, one chop tackling, and they always targeted the ball.
Right.
I know I saw in the first half especially, I was like, okay, these boys have done their homework here. Excuse me. So they kind of played Leinster at their own game. They made an absolute shit of the breakdown. And I just thought actually the big thing was, for me, they won the gain line. They just won the gain line battle, and they probably haven't done that in an awful long time against Leinster.
It was on attack and defence though. It wasn't just normally like for all the Irish sides you see that hard defence coming up, but where Munster were really good is getting that metre or two extra on attack as well, which allowed the momentum for them to stay in a positive. And when your fly off is getting forward momentum, to be able to then dictate from a kicking game perspective, see the open space, which I thought Munster did brilliantly on attack and defence, because they didn't shy away from any form of physical contact in any way or form, which I think was brilliant. So sets up a brilliant final, and the Stormers, having only lost to Munster, this season at DHL Stadium, they'll know they're in for a heck of a game, and there definitely won't be many second stringers, getting given a nod in that final game.
Definitely not. No, 100. Like, I had some stats to go with the Munster win as well. Munster had 20 offloads, where Leinster only had 3. When they had the same amount of defenders beaten, 22 defenders beaten each, and they'd relatively equal possession. So it just shows that Munster really went for it. Like, they were like, we've nothing to lose here, we have to go for this. And there was obviously probably a little bit of Leinster in the back of the head, being like, oh, Munster are missing a few top players. Like, Murray wasn't there, Snyman wasn't there, Conway, Calvin Nash, Fekitoa.
They lost Sean Klein, which actually in the 56th minute, around the 56th minute, I thought was huge. He just had a neck injury. But I thought the two Wychleys come in and did great. Now, Salanoa actually, the first time we got supremacy in the scrum was when both squads changed. And we started to gain dominance. But the offloads but the amount of tackles Leinster made was over 220 odd, isn't that right? But Munster kept moving the ball, and it's so hard to play against. They just always were winning gain line any time. But I just thought they just targeted Leinster as well. Like, Leinster actually couldn't give an offload, and that was so smart. And Graham Rowntree said in his pre-match that they had studied Leinster, and they were going to play the Leinster way. You have to give me and Jason credit. We said we'd go toe-to-toe by playing the Leinster style of Munster, and they kind of did.
Lindsay, I'm not giving you any credit. You came in last week being like...
Here we go.
I did. I think the quote was, Munster have already fought a good fight. And I was like, telling you, 78 minutes, 1 score game. And what happened?
Who has been your biggest fan after Leinster?
Lindsay, I love you to bits, but you've lost.
I haven't lost.
You're out of the URC. You've got to start worrying about La Rochelle now. All right.
No, I think I've been Munster's motivation last week. Obviously, the lads listen to the show.
You.
So they can bring me to South Africa next week in 2 weeks.
What do the DHL Stormers need from you, Lindsay? It's
just bring me down, I'll tell them.
Side hustle down in Cape Town, 2 weeks time.
Come into me, boys. let me stir the pot here.
The euro is at 21 to the rand at the moment. I'm sure we can make a plan.
Oh, yeah. Be grand.
Munster are the home wreckers. They're the only team this year to go down and beat the Stormers, as you mentioned. They beat Glasgow, first team to beat Glasgow at home in Scottstown, and first team to beat Leinster at home. So do we think they can do it again, Mr. Bryan Habana? I know your heart says they don't want to. But what's your head think?
My head thinking the momentum that Munster have, I think the confidence they'll take out of what they did at the Viva last week will be resounding. They're also going to Cape Town 10 days in advance. I think they're going either where are we today? I think they're leaving tomorrow, Irish time, to go down to Cape Town. So they have this 10-day period. There's a rest in between, which should be really good. So the Stormers will be extremely wary. Traveling for a final, how does that change the mentality? I think it's pretty intense. Munster haven't really been in a final for the last couple of years. So do those players that haven't had that experience now try gather it from somewhere? Where the Stormers, current champions of URC, they've slipped away in the Champions Cup, but they've got this winning momentum from the South African standards and how that has gone. So you almost feel there's confidence in the home side, but I then take what happened in Marseille last year with La Rochelle and how they came back from a Leinster team that should have easily won. And almost, if you think about it, Munster can be that La Rochelle element of what we saw in the Hiding Cup final. The Stormers had the Bulls after winning it in the death in the semi last year. So I'd be wary, but I think some of the tries the Stormers scored this past weekend, Mani Libbok, Achieva Daimani, that back pass was some of the silkiest skills that I have ever seen. And I think the confidence that is within that side, what John Dobson has got right in terms of the cohesiveness of the team spirit, the camaraderie, the manner in which they are playing for each other. You think it will be tough for Munster, but that's the challenge of a final. You literally, if it's so close that you can't call it, it makes for incredible viewing from a supporter perspective. We might have a bit of rain, which could potentially then favour the Munster lads because in terms of how they play in 2 weeks' time, it is winter, so we're not going to be getting the 18 to 25 degree shirts off weather that you're having here in Dublin. I mean, we only. I know you've got your shirt off the whole time, but I think in South Africa we only started looking at taking our shirts off at about 30 degrees. So when it gets to 18 degrees and people start taking their tops off here at the docks, you start getting a bit worried here in Dublin. Yeah. But again, I think it's all set up to be an epic final, and I think the big thing from a Munster perspective is the physicality, which I believe the Stormers would be able to match in terms of the prac. I mean, guys like Frans Monherbert, Steven Kutzop up front have been absolutely dominant, but it's been the backs for the Stormers that have been incredible. And you look like Damien Willemse, his hot-stepping ability there. The tackling,
he's good. He's back to full-back there now.
Back at full-back. So, it's going to be brilliant. I think it's going to be...
It is. It's a big test for Munster. Can they do one more time this season before it's over?
Here, I have this crystal ball.
I need more time to think about it.
Oh, the pressure.
But a big man that is going to play a role in it is Jack Crowley, and he had a little bit of a chat after his beautiful drop goal after the Munster-Leinster game. So have a quick listen to this here.
Jack, many congratulations. Just try and tell me how exactly you're feeling right now.
Oh, look, we're in the final. That's where you want to be. Haven't registered yet, but you have to give credit to Leinster today. All week we knew the respect we have to give them as a quality side. They're not, in the final next week for no reason. They're not here. The squad that they have, the quality that they have. So we have to give them the utmost respect. You saw what it took out there to even beat them. You know what I mean? So to them, this is their place, and it's all due respect to them that they're an unbelievable side, and it took everything that we had to beat them. So yeah, happy that we're in the final. Yeah.
One of the best Munster-Leinster derby matches for many a long year, a couple of decades, Donald Lennon said, and you won it in the 70th minute with a drop goal in front of the post. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, look, the moment itself is something, but it's more, the 77 other minutes before that the boys put in, the forwards coming around the corner, the effort that the backs put in, the 23 put in, and then you go beyond that to the lads back home that aren't even here on the pitch today. You know what I mean? It truly, that is what made today. You know what I mean? That moment that goes over the bar, that's what you practice for. That's what you're there to do. You have to do that. But it's the effort that the boys put in, far beyond the 23. So it's an unbelievable squad effort, both coaching and squad. So that's what that meant today, you know what I mean? It was more than the moment.
Right, very cool, calm and collected from Mr. Jack Crowley there, wasn't it? And like for such a young age, and he just seemed to just take the bull by the horns, didn't he, Bryan? And he just goes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to win this for Munster in a local derby against Leinster. Like, that's just incredible stuff, isn't it?
So that's the stuff that defines careers almost, you think. And I think there's this epic photo that's come up on social media this past week, you know, where it's exactly the same image of him and Ronan O'Gara, you know, doing exactly the same thing. And for a lad that, you know, sort of at the start of what is hopefully going to be a very blossoming career, to do it with that mentality, with the calmness, I think, you know, the resolve that he did it with, it almost looked like he'd been practicing it his whole life, and that moment was specifically made for how he did it. I mean, I would have absolutely stuffed that one up. Mine would have probably gone on the ground, grab her under the post. I'm not quite sure if we'd been playing the FIFA World Cup, but I would have absolutely, I mean, with the pressure that he was under. And
that wasn't part of your skill set back in the day, though.
No, I perfected kicking a chip kick off the shin, so I called it the shink. I called it a shink, not a shank.
I think that's on your Wikipedia page as well.
You made it work,
off the shin. But I mean, Mr. Crowley, again, you got to take a lot of respect of what he did and how he did it, and in a big moment like that. And you could sort of see him not wanting to be overcome with joy and exuberance, you know, running back. But what a manner to do it, hey? And much respect. I think it gave him the confidence that will hopefully just continue increasing where he is at his career, and maybe make Mr. Farrell take a look in to see what is possible from a lad who is plenty on the peripheries, but showing big match temperament in a way that is astounding.
Yeah, for sure. I trained with Jack Crowley in the 7th team for a couple of years in Munster Academy. He was in the sub academy coming up, and he was always like a really good, meticulous player, very pedantic with his training. But I didn't think he'd blossom this quickly. Like, he's gone straight to the top, and he's taken it, like, as you said, so calmly, as if he was meant to be there the whole time. So he seems like he is really going to go to the top. And he can't not be in this Irish squad coming up to the World Cup. Like,
well, like you're talking about hands up for Mr. Farrell. Like, if you know, we have such big games against Scotland, against the Box, and then depending on what route we go, then we've the All Blacks, we've the French. So now you have a young man who's kind of saying, like, you know, I'm calmness personified. Like, he had such little time to drop that kick, get a strike on it. You know, I think it was someone saying about, you know, normally they're a bit wonky going over. Like, it was nearly perfect. And Ryan Baird was absolutely running down his throat. And I would have been thinking, I'm going to get blocked here. You know, I'd say he didn't deviate his thoughts. It was just like same process over and over again. So for someone to do that on such a big stage already, he needs to be in that Ireland camp, because the difference in World Cup is it's always a knockout final. Do you know, these games will always be knockout.
3 fly-offs. That's a big call, and it's a big call for World Cup. Burnsy's going really well for Leinster.
Yeah, he is.
He is, but they're different. Like, so I want to know, did you think, because I know you were like giving Mr. Healy shit and telling him to piss off already to Scotland. I know you love him. I know,
like Ben
but you were
Healy,
like
but
a
he signed for
man.
Edinburgh.
I know, but
and
you were
he's
hurt,
capped
man.
by Scotland. Like.
But obviously he went off injured, and then Mr. Crowley went back to 10, and then Rory Scannell, who I thought was very lively, who came on at centre. Okay. Do you think that was a turning point and Mr. Crowley started back into a more favoured position for him?
I think Crowley's much more suited at 10. He can do the job at 12, but like he's a natural 10.
But the only bit thing, he'll be 10, 12 and a utility player going to a World Cup. So now he offers 2. So that's the thing where I'm sorry to put across it. That's where I think with Ross, he is absolutely exceptional, but he's just an out now fly half. Whereas now you've someone who's a utility player. So now you looked at your 6-2 split with Munster's bench, which we'll talk about. So he's just a different option for you now, I think. Okay. So that's my only thing with it.
That's
a fair point.
But at a World Cup, you know, again, Damien Willems, they had that in 2019 when he came in. It was sort of on the peripheries, but I think in the World Cup specifically, where 10 is such a key position, you almost need a specialist. And if Carls doesn't play 10 predominantly consistently for the next 3-4 months, you know, I mean, you look at someone like Ross Byrne, I mean, he's going so well at the moment as well. So do you take 3 10s, or do you then look at other utilities? And again, I look at someone like Keith Earls that's come back from injury, and I'm like, how the heck is he doing that at age 35? I'm like, what is
Still a bit of pace to him. He took off. I was like, holy Lord.
What water is he drinking here up in Limerick and Cork? So, again, I think it's a specialist 10 decision that Andy Farrell's got to look at. And you look at moments like this, think back 2003, that Johnny Wilkinson drop off the right foot, 95, Joel Stransky, Dan Carter in 2015. So 10 is just such a key position, and you need guys with that calmness. But does that put Ross Byrne under pressure now in the next while?
Well, we need Johnny back from surgery, don't we? So
no, I saw Johnny 2 weeks ago. He's pretty confident he'll be back. I also think if you look at how Crowley's playing, look at how Ross Byrne's playing, I think everyone's thinking around, what happens if Johnny gets injured? You look at the quality underneath that at the moment, and you're like, Johnny is an incredible player and will be leading this Irish team in a way in which only Johnny Sexton can. But you now have a lot more confidence in the replacements, where a month or two back you're like, not quite sure if that underlying replacement environment is quite the Johnny Sexton standard. So, kudos to the boys for putting their hands up, and in big games, and that's the biggest thing. Like, as a coach, you must love, firstly, having the opportunity of many people. I mean, if there were slim pickings for Andy Farrell, you'd be like, oh no, Ireland ain't a worry. But you have someone like Crowley coming in now and doing that, and all of a sudden putting pressure on a Ross Byrne and a Johnny Sexton coming back, which is brilliant. Yeah,
it is great. There's plenty of options there. A second choice, I would have. Coming back to the Stormers Connacht game, it was just the Stormers only had 29% possession, and they made 184 tackles to Connacht's 46. Like, they basically didn't have the ball, but every time they did something with it. They had 15 offloads to Connacht's 4. So they were just throwing the ball around. I think Lebach got ahead of steam. Angelo Davis was flying it.
He's only back from injury, am I right with that?
Who's that?
Angelo Davis. He's
been around.
He's been knocking around, but I think
I mean, that line break that he had was just absolutely sublime.
Off
a set piece, I think, as a winger, I was like, nah, that is that is not just bread and butter, but just the manner in which he did it.
And he bumped down Tiernan and Holler,
and then again,
he ran over him.
Oh my God,
just a little bit. And I mean, Angelo's not the biggest boy, but it was a brilliant line. Marnie Lebach again, he is brimming with confidence in so much.
He's been key the last 2 weeks, especially.
Well, he's been key this last 2 years almost for the Stormers. His conversion kicking has become so much better. His kicking out of hand has become so much better. His calmness in intense situations, and he's got some quick pace off the the mark, which is brilliant. So he's been key in all the good things. He does at times blow hot and cold, but there's been a consistency of high performance over the last couple of weeks, which makes you think that someone like Alton Jantjies is in pretty much the shadows at the moment in terms of World Cup selection. And if Marnie can go out there in the final like he did last year and produce the goods, you feel the Stormers side is going to be on the front foot for most of it, which is exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they ended up winning 43-25, which is a good beating for a semi-final. But
to be fair,
to Connacht, it was close.
It was 31-24 or something with about 75
for the last 4
minutes
to go. I mean, those last two tries was again. I mean, that offload from Achieva Diamani is just ridiculous. I mean, the confidence with which he did that. Again, the cross kick from Arnie Lebach, and then just the stepping and the finish from Ronan now. And again, it does bloat the scoreline, in my opinion. You got to hand it to Connacht. I think they pushed the Storm. Up until the 75th minute, you almost did, and you saw John Dobson in the coach's box. He was absolutely shitting himself. Thinking that could this be an upset like they saw a few years ago. So no, it was a brilliant final. Connacht, to their credit, definitely. They weren't sort of thereabouts in the first half, but you felt the second half something was said in that change room, and they came out with
all guns blazing.
With all guns blazing, and really put a Stormers defensive effort under a lot of pressure. In that minute, sort of 50 to 70, you felt the Stormers were leading or leaking a lot of holes in defence. The positive combat in the initial, in terms of the aggression from a defensive perspective was lacking, and Connacht then started getting momentum. One-off runners there, one or two offloads, but they started finding momentum in the collisions, which was potentially worrying if you're a Stormers fan going into a game against Munster where they were winning the combat against Leinster as well. So, but a brilliant final, and again there were some celebrations post-match that has gone viral of the Stormers. Again, not having to travel, which is going to be a big thing for me.
Yeah, huge.
But Munster 10 days in South Africa, hoping the boys don't go to Caprice on Sunday night. Or maybe they should. Maybe they should.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was a bit of Connacht had a defining moment. Like Connacht have been they've been so good and then so inconsistent, and little moments where they're so frustrating. Same with like little knock-ons. And was it Tom Farrell? He wasn't under pressure for a high ball.
Tom Daly.
Tom Daly. And he just had the knock on just off his face, and it just again just that
no pressure,
and it was a try. Davies again, wasn't it? So it was those little moments where you like again, knockout rugby you just unfortunately can't have. It's just those rubs of the green. So I think hats off to Connacht. They've surpassed themselves really this season. There was obviously that edge of Champions Cup rugby. Would they get in? They can get in now, and I think they've given huge foundation and as best a send off for Andy Friend as they could have. They've huge. I think Mark Sexton is coming in now with a lot of high class, coaching to come in there. So hopefully
Mark
they
Sexton
can
being Johnny Sexton's brother.
Yeah, he's going to come
enough.
in. And
John Muldoon's coming in, Scott Fardy.
Yeah,
they're kind of changing the whole coaching staff. They've also signed Joe Joyce, Santiago Cordero, Jack Carty's sticking around. So it was a good season for Connacht. I didn't think they'd get as far as the semi-final. And they did okay against the Stormers, but the Stormers were just flying form. And I'm just worried for Munster if Lebach comes out like that and Andrew Davids and they're just Ruan and Nell and these guys are just flying form. And has that always been the way Stormers have tried to play this expansive high?
Yeah, I mean the Stormers have always been a team in South Africa that have thrown the ball a little bit more than what a typical side like the Bulls would have done. But I think what John Dobson's brought in is that freedom for the ability of the players to not be scared of making a mistake, and I think that has just brought in another level of confidence. And not only that, he's worked the players really hard from a fitness perspective. So those offloads, do find the support runners because they do throw some. I mean, that Diamani offload behind the back pass was
unbelievable. It's like something you see in the NBA.
Oh, it was. I mean, literally Harlem Globetrotter stuff, which is brilliant. But Dobber's given them that confidence to really try to express themselves. You look at someone like Damon Willemse, who potentially becomes constricted in a Springbok international test squad environment. Because you can't make bad decisions at test match level where. They've almost been given free reign and license to try things and do things differently, and they're brimming with confidence. And there does seem to be an incredible team spirit collectively off the field. But you still have like some world class. I mean, Stephen Kutzafran. I mean, for those two up front,
Malherbe will give us both. Will give Munster trouble.
No,
Evan Roos will be a nice combo against.
He hasn't quite found his mojo. I think he's sort of trying to get in with a few things. But again, having the solidity up front, I think is really important. But the backs are just expressing themselves. Someone like Herschel Yankees at 9, who's also pushing. Is he going to go to a World Cup or not?
Yeah.
There's some really talented scrum offs in South Africa at the moment, both in Japan, up in the Northern Hemisphere and in South Africa. So, is he going to be in the mix again? He came in as a pocket rocket back in 2018, and has found some form that got him there. But again, it's all around Manie Lebok and that go forward momentum. His decision making process. I mean, the kick for Hachiva Daimani, was literally.
And there was one for Angelo
Davids the first day as well. So he's really just dictating play. The platform needs to be set up front, and you feel the Stormers forwards have got a bit of grunt as well. Evan Ruus, again, putting his hand up as commander.
He just gets your game line ball. It'd be a nice battle against Coombs, I think.
Yeah.
And then the fullback pair, Mike Prendergast, or Mike Haley, had another absolutely unbelievable game. And the split, his shoulder was hanging off, and he lasted the full 80 minutes. It was testament to the man. He was fantastic. So
Mike Haley had a great game. He showed some
real grit. He was actually at Newlands, I think in 2016 when Ireland won that epic game. So he might be bringing in some confidence about what is possible down in Cape Town.
And seeing Earls play, does that give you any itch to get back playing about
No
it?
chance. I think sort of got off the plane last night and I got a bit of inflammation. I'm not quite sure if it was from 777 restaurant last night or what exactly the inflammation from this morning, but no. I'd rather look at someone like Mornay Steyn at 39, still beating the door down.
He's showing you all up?
No, showing us all up. No, tapping the 4-0 this year, Mr. O'Shea, there's not even any inclination of wanting to. My two little boys, 9 and 5-year-olds, are giving me enough grief from a physicality perspective to even
chasing them down.
Trying to catch them. It's not chasing them down. It's trying to catch them.
You've done it all in fairness, yeah. And one thing you're doing now is helping pick the EPCR Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Can you fill us in on how that all works? How you come narrowing it down? All the top players in Europe.
So it's actually a pretty intense process. So you get asked to be on the board or the panel at the start of the season, and you sort of got to put your hand up because it's pretty intense. You're trying to watch all the games to appropriately select. So we go through a qualification process. You need to choose after the round robins. You need to choose your top 20 or top 15, which is like, how do you only choose 15 players?
I know.
And you just got this plethora of talent. Again, there's a few South Africans, but just from Europe playing. You got a few outliers. You look at the Tag Furlongs, the Anton Duponts, the Josh van der Vliers, Tyke Byrne from Munster, who's been exceptional again throughout the season. Greg Aldrich, from La Rochelle. So you got these names, and we then there's I think there's 5 of us on the panel this year, and you then submit it. So you actually don't know who's submitting what. Then it gets narrowed down. So my 15 will be very different to all the other panel members. And then after the quarterfinals, you have to narrow that down to 10. And then you got to put in a submission of like only 5 for the last weekend. And then we have a massive debate on Saturday morning ahead of the final. Who's why have you chosen this? And we all give our own opinions on who should be selected the EPCR Player of the Year. And then you're sitting on your phone during the game, and you have to submit your one player 5 minutes before the end.
What?
So I've been fortunate to be on the panel a few times.
Jeez.
And we're like, but what if the game goes into extra? And there has been the La Rochelle, Leinster game last year.
You thought it was
we were all going Leinster, and then literally the last 5 minutes. Oh no, we're changing this up. What happened? La Rochelle, Will Skelton coming to the field doing what he did, and then you have to submit your final vote for the EPCR player before the time is up, which is. It's pretty daunting. It's really daunting, and you don't know what the other 4 members have selected on the panel. Yeah. So you're then hoping, and then there's obviously the fan vote that gets included from a online social media perspective. So I think there's a weighting. I don't know what the exact weighting percentage is, but I think we have a lot less of a weighting percentage in the final, where we sort of recommend the 5 finalists. But I think it's brilliant, and so many world-class players. And you look at what we will see this week, and you think. As much as Anton Dupont is still playing brilliant rugby, the La Rochelle guys are just...
They were sublime.
They were absolutely
in the semi-final, and they've had another epic season.
But it's a pretty... It's not as simple as, choosing names out of a hat. And you battle it out, you give your understanding of, why you believe someone in particular should get it. But then... you can't justify if a player has an absolute stormer in a final. Do you change your thinking? And you unfortunately can't add someone in that isn't in the top 5, which is unfortunate. But if someone was maybe in the 5th sort of place ahead of the final and then has an absolute stormer, you're like, do you just take the final, and how big is that, or do you go back into the whole season and how the other 4 players have been going? So it's a pretty tough task. To be honest, but one that's...
I'd rather take the drop call.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Give me the drop call now and say that.
But at least it's like consistency over the season. There's lots you pick and you're filtering it down. It's not just going over a point.
But do you have I think I'd have like an Excel spreadsheet and maybe like point them, so then I'd know the consistency, because I'd be caught up in a final going, oh Jesus, look, Kinder's an absolute storm against La Rochelle. He's won them the game. But,
No, you do have certain stats, and again, that's what we debate on at the breakfast on Saturday morning is, okay, well, what do we look at in totality? Do we just look at the knockout rugby, the mentality, the play, the ability of a player in a knockout environment? Or do you look at the consistency? A lot of the Irish lads miss a lot of the first part of the season because they either rested or whatever, and the other guys have been putting in the work from the beginning. Does that count more or that count less? So
positionally, does that come in? Because obviously if Dupont is like so central to their team at 9, and then you've, say, the likes of Dors and Van der Vlier who are so key in the pack area, and they're...
No, so I've had someone like Tyke Furlong. A lot of the dirty work sometimes you don't get seen, but his pirouetting, his passing, his stepping skills has been visible for everyone. Yeah. But then you look at someone like Tyke Byrne, who has just been so instrumental in all the good things that have come about with Munster this season in particular. So you'll try to look at the holistic approach. Obviously, there's man of the matches and things. And someone like Greg Aldrich, his name's always thereabouts because of his ability, his play. I had guys like Bottier who could come on as a replacement and just do some mind-blowing things. So I think a worthy top 5. Obviously, you're not always in a democracy, which we are on the panel. You're not always going to agree, but I think we've got sort of 5 that are pretty decent.
They're all right, aren't they?
They're all right. World Player of the Year, 2023. Touching thereabouts, 2022. So I reckon we'll have an interesting, heated panel discussion, and I'm not quite sure what we'll enjoy. I mean. Maybe there'll be a full Irish breakfast. And
you'll have some black pudding then?
No, I'll be giving mine on to one of the other lads.
CJ might have it, would he? Swap his white and black pudding with you.
No, CJ cleaned up his plate.
He's a good guy. He's a good Munster man by trade.
I would love to be a fly in that wall listening to that conversation. But we want to talk more about you, Bryan.
Yeah.
One of the greatest rugby players to ever play the game. And I don't want to big your head up here. But we picked our best players of all time last week, and Lindsay actually said you. Didn't you, Lindsay?
You're welcome.
It's very kind of you. Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely.
You were in my top 3. I gave it to Carter. I'm sorry about that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I go. I mean, it's always difficult because what do you go on when you're choosing the best ever? I just think you look at the holistic approach, and again, Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson, Jonah Lomu, first global supersport. But for me, and I say it, Richie McCaw is just on another planet.
Jason picked Richie, didn't he?
The other, Jason.
And the reason I say that is, I mean, to become the first captain to win 100 Test matches, and be the first captain to win back-to-back Rugby World Cups. And I tell you, everyone, the reason I choose Richie is like every time you play against the Crusaders or the All Blacks, you get on a Monday and all the coaches start going, okay, well, how do we nullify the Richie McCaw threat? And you go, well, which element of the Richie McCaw threat do you start nullifying? You know, is it the breakdown? Is it the manner in which he talks to the refs? Is it the manner in which he leads his team? And like everything, we're going to fuck him up at the breakdown, contact, 2 double hits, bottom and top. We're going to absolutely destroy him. Buckies, if you get an opportunity, do what you do best at the breakdown. And you go through this like process of Richie McCaw, and what he got right throughout his career was phenomenal. I mean, he played the 2011 final with a broken bone in his foot, and you think of how he ended in 2015. There's not many fairy tale endings, but the manner in which he, not only gave the game everything, but then signed off, where you could have gone on to get millions and millions of euros or yen or pounds anywhere in the world. But decided to call it a day, winning, back-to-back Rugby World Cups with an exceptional record. Which I think, yes, obviously Alan Jones has now gone past him, as the most capped Test player of all time. But I think there would be a lot of people in the world who wouldn't mind winning 10 games as a captain. To win more than 100 as a captain.
Absolute legend of the game, He's flying helicopters now, I believe, down in New Zealand.
Well, he was doing that during his career as well. So he's always loved the,
Are you surprised though now, to be honest?
He does everything.
I mean, he was at the coronation as well. He was at the coronation. He was, because he's now, I think he is Sir Richie McCaw, isn't he?
He could be.
I think he is here in this studio anyway.
Well, let's go, Richie, more about you. A 2-time Super Rugby winner, 2-time Heineken Cup winner, Top 14 winner, a World Cup winner, Lion Test Series winner, and a former World Player of the Year. You've done it all, man, in fairness to you. And it's hard to kind of pin down, like, best moments, all this kind of stuff. But I want to go back to, like, your roots of what got you actually starting playing rugby initially. Because obviously you would have been there when there was the apartheid in Africa, and South Africa won the first World Cup under Nelson Mandela. And would it be right to say that influenced you, or were you already a rugby head at that stage?
No, that was 100% the influence. So my dad took me out of school for the first time ever. We'd obviously just become a democratic country in 94. The 95 Rugby World Cup had come to South Africa. For those of the people out there that don't know, I'm named after Brian Robson and Gary Bailey. So 2 Manchester United sporting heroes, and grew up sporting Manchester United, wanting to become the next South African export into this Premiership. So soccer was sort of, soccer was my thing. A bit of cricket as a youngster. And then my dad took me out of school for the first time ever. Went on a road trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town, which is about 1,400 kilometers, 1,100 miles. Had never really experienced a rugby game before. And then, got to, DHL Newlands, was experiencing this incredible, there was grown men crying. I'll never forget, there was a guy in front of my dad that had a white guy with his New South African flag painted on his face. Gave my dad a hug. My dad had like a Cotton Traders Springbok jack jumper on, and this guy's South African flag was now on my dad was absolutely pissed off that his one Springbok memorabilia item that he had has now been ruined. But just to see the unity, the coming together, I then went back solo on a plane for the first time ever. But we went to the quarterfinals as a family, where the late Chester Williams, scored those 4 tries against Samoa. Jumped back in a car the following week to go down to Durban, and then I was fortunate enough to be at that final on the 24th of June 1995 in the stadium as a 12-year-old boy. And I think, having never played the game before and just witnessing, with those 22 men, the iconic Nelson Mandela walking out there in the number 6 Springbok jersey, and Francois Pienaar saying it wasn't for the 60,000 in the stadium, it was for the 48 million South Africans. I have
goosebumps. I'm sorry.
As things go, as a 12-year-old boy, child, you don't understand what is happening, but you just see the unity. You
can feel it, can't you?
And unlike many players of colour in South Africa, I didn't grow up underprivileged. You know, I went to really good schools, got given the best opportunities. I never had to struggle for a lot of things. So as much as I understand, that 60 or 70% of our population, were excluded, were discriminated against. I've got a very different story to a Siya Khaleesi, and I then went to a very affluent, high school, and my first ever game of rugby the following year in '96 was for the under-14 G side, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Sorry, just say that again.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's the seventh bit. I was probably about wee high. Like I was a little. Obviously, moms are very scarce. So I had these shoulder pads, and you couldn't see my neck when I had my shoulder pads on. I was that tiny. But not just getting to play a game that you'd love, that fall in love with the year before was absolutely brilliant. And you start dreaming dreams, and again, go through the highs and the lows of playing schoolboy rugby. Rugby was still very amateur in '96 to 2000 while I was at school. I started playing a bit of provincial rugby. I got my first junior contract, when I was 18 years old. So in the Lions setup, and then I just catapulted from there. But that '95 experience was for so many. And I mean, there's a stat in South Africa that Jean de Villiers, I need to mention. He says that if you play schoolboy rugby in your final year of school in South Africa, your chances of becoming a Springbok in the next decade is something ridiculous, like 0.0058%.
Oh my God!
I mean, there's only been ever like 940 Springboks, since the inception. And there's thousands. I mean, you've seen schoolboy rugby in South Africa; it's absolutely bonkers. So, I mean, you have these dreams, but for them to become reality, I'll never forget I had an incredible 2004 year. Played sevens in Wellington and Los Angeles. Had some Vodacom Cup. Hadn't played Super Rugby before. Came up to Glasgow for the Under-21 World Cup. That went really well. I'd been moved to centre, so started playing on the wing. And then I was in South Africa, sort of with my university mates, and my dad called me. He's like, "Listen, I've still got a call. You've been selected into the Springbok incoming tour for the Tri Nations back then." I'm like, look at my watch. I'm like, "Dad, stop pulling the piss. It's not April the 1st." He goes, "No, you got to be in camp on Sunday." And I was like, absolutely in my element. So you have this dream 8 years prior, 96, 2004, you get called up, to join the Springbok squad for the very first time. And it's heroes, Osteran, Percy Montgomery, Brayton Paulser, John Smith. I mean, I literally walked by Percy Montgomery in the hotel. He didn't know who I was.
Oh, no way.
I was that wet behind the ears.
Wow.
But yeah, it was the epic. And I think when you get selected for South Africa, that moment of pride and everything you've gone through to get to that point.
And would that be your first cup for South Africa be your proudest moment? Or because you've done it all, you played in Toulon, you won the World Cup. I think you equaled Jonah Lomo's record of scoring 8 tries in a single World Cup. Like, how do you even pick your favourite moment?
No, it's really easier. And again, you mentioned that first moment against England, the then world champions at the home of rugby. I was on the bench. It was bitterly cold. I was freezing my arse off. So much so that when I was supposed to go onto the field, the team manager called me back, and I was pretty aggrieved because there's only 10 minutes left. And they said, "No, you're still going to go on, Bryan. You just need to take the beanie off your head." Literally, at Twickenham, I was going to run on with the beanie on my head. But scored a try with my first touch of the ball in international rugby against the world champions at the home of rugby. We got absolutely annihilated that day. I think it was like 32-16. It was a horrible game for South Africa. But I think for me, I tell everyone, that was without a doubt the proudest moment of my career. Trophies, World Cup wins, all of this. But the fact that then you get to represent your country, fulfill a lifelong dream. But more so than that, you get to feel the privilege and the accountability and responsibility that comes with that. And I was then like, it is just so incredible. And it goes by so quickly. It was only 8 minutes that I was on the field. But you never want to lose that. And I sat there after the game and I was like, you score a first try, there's some media interviews that you have to do. And then I was like, you know what, I don't want this feeling to ever disappear. And I don't just want to be a flash in the pan. I don't want to be there for one test,
one
two
cap
tests,
wonder,
one cap wonder, 1 year wonder. And that moment made me realize the opportunity that you have to really make a difference in people's lives, to be an inspiration, but more so the accountability and responsibility that you get with wearing your national jersey. And it was that moment that made me realize, I've got to work even harder than what I've ever worked for the last 8 years. I've got to be more proactive. There's so much varying levels, and it was before social media and all this stuff. But again, you can now get this responsibility to live out a dream, get paid exceptionally well to do it, and then particularly from a rugby perspective in South Africa, inspire a nation. Yeah. So that first moment, bar everything, was pretty epic, Reggie. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's incredible, Brian. I'm going to have to let you go because you have a lot of work to do for the European final this weekend.
Before we let him go, can I just give a quick shout out to Mary Shaw, originally from Athenry, Mary Shaw, because she's been living in South Africa for 30 plus years, and I think the goosebumps that I briefly spoke to her last weekend. She was home visiting her sister Anne Poniard, a staunch Connacht fan, but she spoke so highly. Knew Manny Lebach, she's a huge Stormers fan. Sarah Khaleesi is a huge fan, fan of yours, and I just think it's so. The shout out is because you're not only inspiring, it's just testament. She spoke about the inspiration and living there, and she was originally from Ireland. So thank you very much for that shout out. But you are, I could talk to him all day. We could talk to you all day. We don't want to let you go.
I mean, give me 30 minutes, I might be back.
Will you? Come back to us and have a bit of breakfast. So your second Friday.
Maybe go to the second part of the black pudding.
No, sorry, you're a legend of the game. No, of course, you're a legend of the game, Brian. And I grew up watching all your videos. You inspired me as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, guys. Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Yeah. Do we have to let you go?
I suppose just a quick question. I just want to touch on the weekend and what that might implicate in terms of the Champions Cup final. Obviously, a defeat for Leinster that we certainly weren't expecting. I know I wasn't anyway, for sure. I know a lot of guys were rested that probably won't be playing the weekend and whatnot. That will be playing the weekend, but I mean, if you look back on the game, a defeat is never always good, mentally, and then physically. I was looking at some of the stats. The ball in play time for that game was 44 minutes and 50 seconds. And it was very fast paced. It was very physical. You had the likes of Josh had to come on very early and play a lot of that game. Do you think it's going to have any bearing on the weekend, or is it just forget about it? Champions Cup final is coming up.
I think naturally, of course, it's going to have a bearing on the environment. You've got guys that have played their last game of the season that are a little bit sick at the prospect of losing to our greatest rival, albeit, the rivalry has been very much one way in the last 10 or so years. But yet, it's always a bitter defeat when you lose to one of the provinces, but particularly Munster. So you can't help half of that. 23 guys are going to come in, and a few of them are going to be licking their wounds and think, okay, I've got a game this weekend. Lots of guys are going to think, I have to wait till next season for another game. So it's not a perfect environment to go into a Champions Cup week, you'd have to imagine. But I suppose those that are going to be involved in the 23 have a chance to go and win the big prize. Not that you want to belittle the URC, of course, you want it domestically to still get the job done, but ultimately the eyes of this Leinster team are very much on the Champions Cup prize. And I think the side that was selected in the semi-final would... you wouldn't have to be a genius to work that out, that they very much feel as though they've achieved that URC level, not last year, but 4 years in the bounce before that. It's been too long as far as they're concerned, with Champions Cup victory. So this is the year for them, and they've still got a phenomenal opportunity to get that done playing in the Aviva.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, it's a repeat of last year, albeit in Dublin this time as opposed to Marseille last year. I remember being over Marseille last year, and the fans, and even speaking to yourselves and the guys, I think you were the only person that said it's a final. It can go either way. But the likes of Lawrence and Ugo and all them were like, yeah, Leinster have this in the bag. I mean, where do you think they went wrong last year? Was it Rodgers' game plan, or was it more down to maybe they kind of were a bit too confident going into the game?
I don't necessarily think it was a bit too confident. I think they were just a bit off their game. And I think you've got to give La Rochelle a huge amount of credit, and Rog and the coaching ticket around the way that the strategy that they came at this game. Deny Leinster good quality set piece possession from line out, in particular, the way they try and launch from it, and an awful lot of their scores come from line out. A lot of it was scrappy, lots of passes inside shoulder, stuttered runs, and so it didn't have the same impact as the launch plays up to the and including the semi-final, and even up to this point this season, Leinster have been so fluid. So I think a huge amount of it has to go down to La Rochelle, but also Leinster just off a beat, and I don't know, only they know why that was. Maybe it was a bit of a nervousness, maybe there's a bit of residual from La Rochelle the previous year. Well, that's been doubled down on, 2 defeats in the last 2 years. So for me, that's why the first 15 minutes of this game is so huge. if La Rochelle could get an early score in it, I think we've got one hell of a game on our hands, because then you'll really see what Leinster are made of. And I think there hasn't been much question, about the mentality of this group, because a lot of them have achieved for Ireland and have won in New Zealand and won Grand Slams. But let's be honest, they've slightly under-delivered on their capacity of where this team has been in the last 5-6 seasons by only having one title. They have been nearly always the best team in Europe, but not delivered at semi-final and final stage the way they would have wanted. So this is a big opportunity, but a huge amount of pressure for them to do that too.
What's your favourite moment so far from this year's competition, Bryan? Obviously, I suppose you'd be hoping that your favourite moment will come after the weekend, but so far it's been a very good Champions Cup this season, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Like, even going back to the first game against Racing over there, Racing are always hotly tipped to France. Okay, granted, they have to move out of La Défense Arena and play in Le Havre, but the intensity with which Leinster brought, and set the tone from very early on. They weren't feeling sorry for themselves and their defeat in the final last year. It was, okay, onwards and upwards. What are we going to do this time round? How can we improve? How can we get better? To score, I think they scored nearly 50 points away from home against a team that have been in the final four times in the last 8 or 9 years is an impressive feat. So for me, that was a real, okay, maybe they really mean business. And then they haven't let up at all since then. Just their ability to find different gears over the course of the season in Europe, King's Home, some of the little intricacies, some of the small little multi-phase plays, the free kick, touches of little slip passes and loop plays. Just, I think some of that small stuff, training ground stuff, you always get huge pleasure as an ex-player looking and going, oh, it's when they come off, you kind of lick your lips and they'll go, oh God, we're an all right team.
Brilliant. You can spot him a mile away. In terms of the European Player of the Year, Bryan, anyone stand out for you? Do you think he has to win it? Or it's going to be tight enough this year. A few Leinster guys and a few La Rochelle guys there.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of Gary, perhaps.
Gary and Caelan, I think, are the two obvious ones from Leinster perspective. Josh has been great and been very, I think he might have scored 5 or 6 tries in the competition so far. But I think the other two have probably, been just a little bit ahead of him. Aldred is the other one that's nominated from La Rochelle. Is that right?
Yeah. Sure, so, yeah.
And then Dupont, is he the 5th one?
I think it's Dupont. Yeah.
I think so. I think, do you know what? Couldn't relate. Dupont's still winning it, He's been so bloody good this season. Even in defeat against, Leinster, they conceded nearly 50, like switching from 9 to 10, like he's a freak show. But I do think, it'll be interesting for me, it'll be between Aldred and Caelan and Gary. Whoever has the big game in the final, I think, will win it.
In terms of favourite moments, Bryan, have you got one, I suppose, as a player and maybe perhaps as a fan? Like, you've been involved you've been retired a while now, so you've seen a lot of things. Or even when you were playing now, like, is there more moments you pick to?
I think going back and not it's not a personal one, but I think what Johnny Sexton did in 2011, and the way he spoke to the group, but talk is cheap. And then he went out and scored 28 points. He scored 2 tries in the second half and kicked everything, and he properly led. For me, that was inspiring. And so to be a part of that, but ultimately watch someone delivering on their words the way he did was, a really great memory. And I remember being in a team huddle on the pitch afterwards, and the Black Eyed Peas, "Tonight's going to be a good night," coming on, and us all doing some dad dancing in the middle of the circle and stuff. That was a good night. They weren't lying, those Black Eyed Peas. Tonight was going to be a good night.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Have you noticed that all year? Like, just the drive that the lads have had to challenge for trophies on 2 fronts.
Yeah, I suppose we're driven by performance. Kind of, obviously titles are a result of what you do, but for me, coaching, big emphasis on performance and getting better. If you don't get better, you get beaten. It's a slogan from the Crusaders, but you get better or you get beaten. I like it. It's very simple. It's easy to adhere to. So you either have that drive in you to get better every day, or you get beaten. So the boys are showing up well so far.
Well, you might have thought of Crowley's drop kick at the weekend and a drop goal and what it meant, but Leinster have a whole new squad of players that can almost come in and throw up against you at the weekend.
Yeah, it was a beautiful drop goal. It was perfect technique, and he hit it amazingly well. The flight of the ball was perfect. So it was a huge day for Munster. A lot of suffering in the past, so it was great to see the reaction on a lot of their boys' faces, the staff's faces. It meant a lot to them. Yeah, so obviously Leinster would be disappointed with that, but as you said, their focus has been on winning Europe, and they've made their plan that was the team they were going for. It was be a completely different team this weekend from Leinster, so we're expecting the best version of Leinster, and the best version of them is a formidable task. So we know how difficult it is going to be, but we want to test ourselves against the best.
There was an interesting question about Tawera, and the fact that he could end up playing for the Aussies and stuff like that as well. It's he's some talent, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a brilliant player, isn't he? He's forged a pretty awesome career, I think, over a good number of years now, and he's become a real kind of mainstay in that La Rochelle team, and he's been playing awesome. So yeah, hopefully he can get a chance to come up against them again. He obviously missed last year's final through injury, so yeah, it'll be awesome to come up against them.
There was some talk there. What was it? James Lowe was doing a talk there earlier in the season, and he was talking about favorite rugby memories and stuff. And for him, he was saying that Grand Slams and all, it's not like you're demoting anything, but for him, he was saying the idea of beating the All Blacks in New Zealand for him was his favorite rugby memory as well. Would it rank really up highly for you as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think my first one in the Aviva as well. I think it was November 21, so that was pretty massive as well. That was pretty awesome and kind of emotional day. But yeah, in terms of rugby memories, they're certainly right up there. Obviously, Grand Slam was unbelievably special. I only played the last couple of games, but it was pretty incredible to do that in the Aviva in front of such a special crowd, and kind of the moments after, and no one left the stadium. It was brilliant, and certainly memories you won't ever forget.
Yeah, I remember it was even for me sometimes as a journalist and as a writer and broadcaster, you can get caught up in the kind of the day job and wanting to write everything. But I remember after you guys won that Grand Slam, I remember just sitting back and just standing up and just watching it and watching everybody enjoy it. And there was even a nice moment with Paul O'Connell. He would have won a Grand Slam himself in the past. He was just standing back and watching it all and letting you guys soak in the moment. It was kind of special memories, weren't they?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like I say, for people like Paulie who had already been there before, kind of soaking it up, and I think that's probably something you get better at with age, is kind of being able to take a step back and look at really what's going on. Because I think when you're young, sometimes you just get caught up in the moment. And we've actually had I think Stu played us a clip of Kevin Sinfield when he won a lot of big games, and he said the same thing. As he got on, he got more thrills out of kind of just sitting back and watching everyone else enjoy the moment. So, it's certainly pretty awesome memories, like I say, that stick with you.
I saw there was even looking on Sports File there after one of the last games. You had the daughters out on the pitch as well. That's a thing that the even with Andy Farrell at Ireland, the Leinster seem to do as well. Really embracing that kind of the family, and it's not just for you. You're playing for kind of a wider community than that. Is that something that kind of resonates with you?
Yeah, massively. Like I touched on, Faz has been working with the kind of family element, and same goes for Leinster as well. So we're really trying to grow that part of the game, I think. And those are moments to savor, aren't they? And my oldest daughter is kind of old enough now to kind of understand what's going on, and she really enjoys being able to get out there on the pitch and enjoy those moments. So, as well as obviously my family, my wife being in the stands, and being able to enjoy those moments. So yeah, it's pretty special.
I kind of wanted to take you back there, and it's actually maybe again like you see you have Gisborne there, like in the photo there behind you on the frame, like, but just reading up a little bit about yourself, like I spent a year in New Zealand when I was in my 20s. I lived in Auckland, but so be aware of a little bit of the place, but I don't think I ever got out to Great Barrier Island or anything like that. What was that like as a place to grow up in?
It's pretty awesome, unique, I suppose. Like a very small, kind of tight-knit community. Everyone knows each other, and it's a pretty big island itself, like landmass wise, but in terms of population, it's very small. So, like I say, everyone kind of knows each other, and that was kind of the way I was brought up, and kind of a real laid-back mindset, which probably has shaped me to be the person I am today, I think. Like everyone's always late and all that kind of stuff, They're like, that's not me as a professional. Got better at that, but that's just kind of the island way of life, and it was how I was brought up, I suppose. So yeah, like I said, it's probably shaped me a lot, and like sport was massive for me. Like I'd bike to school every day, and then I'd be out on the pitch with the ball, and it was just kind of one of those ones where you just had to be home before it was dark. I was out doing sport every other day, so that was kind of my upbringing, I suppose, and done a lot of stuff outdoors, fishing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so like I say, it probably shaped me in many ways.
Okay, guys, so we're down to the final of the European Cup. Leinster, who are a bit hurting after Munster giving them
I don't want my eyes to get caught in the back of my head as they roll.
Leinster beating them, or getting beaten by Munster, which is great to see. They're going to be a bit sore, which might help them, spur them on to go against La Rochelle. But La Rochelle have the mental edge on them. They beat them the last 2 years, once in the semi-final, once in the final. So what do we think, guys, leading into the weekend? Lindsay?
Oh, God. Okay, I'll be truthful. Excuse me. I'll clear my throat for this. I'm a little nervous. I think home advantage would be key. Obviously, said earlier in the show, disrespectful probably wasn't the word. I thought maybe naive, but I do see Brian's point about blooding new players, or blooding the younger players in the game against Munster. However, I just hope the gamble is going to play off and the lads are ready. They're well rested. They've had enough. I know they've the season behind them, so it's not like keeping them sharp. But what probably came of the Munster game was we didn't manage the game well. So when we did get into Munster 22, when we did get sniffing that try, we didn't take the pace off the ball. We didn't slow it down. We weren't meticulous in just minding that ball. We kind of matched that really hyperactive rate of play that Munster had going, and it suited them. It didn't suit Leinster, and I thought that was the one thing we deviated. Like we always throughout the season have spoke about Leinster's composure. They always know what to do, and I actually thought for the first time this season against Munster they didn't look like they had the answers. The only other time I've seen them in that situation was last year's final against La Rochelle, where they were kind of void of answers and they didn't have everything their own way. So I think even more so the mental side of this game for me, whatever about the skill set, whatever about the game plan, that has to be key for me this weekend. And I'm wondering, will the home venue be a curse, or will it be an added bonus for like a 24th man to just galvanise them? And I hope, considering the way the lads speak about the Aviva and the crowd, and times they've played there this season, and obviously as a lot of Irish internationals, they're well used to the Aviva. I hope it's the latter that it will really add to them.
Yeah, it seems mad looking back now about Leinster that they got into finals in the last 2-3 years and they just can't seem to get over the line. I don't know what it is, because in my opinion they're still the best team in Europe by far. Their whole squad's incredible, but they just can't get that win when it comes to crunch time. And why do you think that is, Pat? Do you think they can do it this weekend, get over that hump?
Yeah, I'm still sitting in the aura of Bryan Habana.
I know. How
here,
are you finding that chair now with him?
It feels like I'm not filling it as well as he did there as well.
Possibly not, but that's okay. No,
the aura definitely not as well. But no, yeah, like it's interesting. I would have thought, because they're stacked. It's basically the Irish team. The fact that they won the Grand Slam was going to stand to a lot of them, and the pressure of having to kind of win big games at home and kind of clinch the Grand Slam. That'll all surely stand to them, I think, as well. Like the other thing is like there's a weird part because like I've been at Ireland games and now being at that Leinster Munster game again, when things aren't going well, because we almost expect this team to win all the time now, when things aren't going well, the crowd get really quiet, and that's a big concern. That happened against Munster as well. There's nothing for the crowd to cheer. So La Rochelle will be looking at that and saying, if we can do that again, because it's a mad how nervous the crowd gets, and it's like, oh god, you know, like you'd be expecting them to win. So this Munster game, you just hope to God, like Leinster fans, I'm sure they'll be in big voice, but they need to get right behind that team right from the start and get really behind everything and cheer all the big moments and really kind of urge them on. They can't just sit there waiting for it to be a procession. And I think the fact that they did lose to them last year and they've now lost to Munster, the crowd will hopefully go there and kind of give it everything as well. And that will get behind the team. And then the other thing is like, yeah, I'd be nervous as well. But then I was doing a little bit of like, you know, putting some of the script together for the show last night, and just that Leinster starting 15, if that's that starting 15, where I'll just reel it off quickly. Porter, Sheehan, Furlong, Maloney or Bard with James Ryan. Then you have Doris, Van der Fleer, Conan, Jamison Gibson-Park, Ross Byrne, James Lowe should be back, Henshaw, Ringrose, Jimmy O'Brien or Larmer on the right wing, and then Hugo Keenan. That is a effing great team. So like if you just kind of look at it like that, these lads are primed for it. I think they're going to do it. I was more nervous maybe after the semi after I saw what La Rochelle did to Exeter, but now maybe sometimes I get a bit delirious as the game gets closer and I kind of get a bit, and then on the match day itself I'd be like, oh shit, we're going to do this. But I think they're going to do it because they have such a great team and they've the Grand Slam behind them, and then the crowd hopefully just need to go big behind them, because the La Rochelle fans made a big difference last year in Marseille, and it's time for payback. You made a great point about the crowd. The one thing actually I noticed from the Munster game was they kept booing. Like Frank Murphy had a few what they deemed dodgy decisions, and they were booing, and I was like, right, the first one or two boos was fine, but then I was like, no lads, we need to kind of get behind them, because every time it was always those little feeders of momentum. And you know, even the Munster crowd, you could just the cameras just always went to them, and they're up out of their seats and they're nearly targeting Leinster, you know, fans, you know. And it was a real derby. It was a cracking match. Like, it had everything. How many blood injuries were there? Ben Healy, Robbie Henshaw had blood coming out of him. Archer's thrown Cian Healy a slap. You know, it was just a real derby match. And yeah, the only thing was I just felt, Munster came out of that kind of a little bit, you know, they were a little bit more bolshy, and I was disappointed at that. Yeah, it was Munster of old. And then I know it's a group of young fellas, like you have your Coombses and Shane Daly's and all these guys, and you just see that they would have grown up watching the 06 win and the 08 win, and they just brought that fight out, and it was beautiful to see. And we'll see what Munster do now against Stormers. But you know the difference actually, Donald O'Callaghan made a great question to Graham Rowntree in this post-match, and he said, you know, the old Munster guard, he said, you know, we'd be going for pints, and he said, you went to the corner. And Graham Rowntree said, yeah, we're learning, and we, you know, to win big in these games now, you have to go and score tries, and we had made that decision. And they didn't play it safe, because Jack Crowley went to the corner and he could have taken 3 points. I think they were only 1 point behind at that stage. Yeah. And he didn't. And that was another big point with Crowley. What I loved as a player is a 10 who had confidence and knew a game plan. And every time that went out for a set piece, he'd be calling his set piece play off it. 5-man off the top, whatever he was calling. He was so confident, and that was a huge difference for him when he sat in at 10. Yeah, it was great to see as well. Actually, when I turned on my phone the day after Munster had won, I had messages from Craig Casey and Jack Crowley. Why didn't I get a message from Craig Casey? I've been trying to... Craig, if you're listening, hon, I've been giving you love from the start of the season to the very end, so I'll drop my phone number and you can give me a thank you text as well. He gets very upset when I mention anyone. I'll bring you out sometime, you can meet all these people. But I grew up with... Do you know what? You are giving me no credit this morning. No credit at all. Craig Casey's a Shannon man, and I know Jack Crowley from training with him, and they saw my prediction. I have picked Craig Casey as my 9 throughout this season. I'm going to give my prediction for Leinster and La Rochelle. You just went there? Right, go. I think because Munster shook up Leinster, that they have tuned them in a way that they weren't tuned in last year. Leinster went all last year without losing and got to the final, and they didn't know what to do when they got into that position where they were going to lose. They've felt it now against Munster, so Munster did you a favour going into against La Rochelle in Aviva. I think Leinster are going to win. It's going to be a high scoring game in the Aviva. Leinster are going to win, and it's going to be by like at least more than one score. So it's going to be, if I have to give an actual score, I'm going to say 24-15 to Leinster. Is what I'm going to say, and I think they're going to really put in a big performance, because they're going to tune in mentally now, and they're not letting this happen again 3 years ago against La Rochelle, and they're hurting against Munster. What do you think? just waiting for afterwards, because the WhatsApp blowing up when you get it right again, and I hope to God you get it right as well. No, being objective, of course, just because it'd be fair to share it out.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I can see that you just know, like the La Rochelle team are stacked as well, like just a crazy team, like crazy talent, and they've been able to rest a good few guys as well, like, but you'll see they'll be trying to slow the game down as well, and they'll be trying to take moments off Leinster, not let them get any momentum, but they've got to be better for it this year, like, because they were nullified so much, so they're going to be ready for it. Like, it's almost like they've just been pulled to the side, and it's like, I'm sure they've been knocking the heads off each other in training as well, like, but yeah, I think they'll do it, like, and again, like, maybe if it's kind of a 50-50, is the home crowd going to go in their favour as well, and someone going to make a big play as well, like, but if they need to, I think if they can get themselves a good start, like Ireland did in nearly all the Grand Slam games, Ireland went out against New Zealand, they'd be scoring a try in the first 10 minutes. If they can do something like that again, then I think it'll go in their favour. Yeah,
that's what Bryan said in his interview, Jason. The first 20 minutes will be key with this. And I think the same thing, but that was another, I was kind of thinking the same. One thing you guys did at Munster was targeted our breakdown, our set piece, and that's what La Rochelle did last year, and that's what they'll do again this year, especially line out, because there's such a launch play off it. We're so successful. So I think 20 minutes absolutely come out like raging bulls, and I think they need to set the tone aggression wise and absolutely blow La Rochelle players. Now, I mean blow them with intent off the ball, anywhere they get a sniff of our breakdown. So if they need to go by the Nina bar, analogy about whatever they feel that ball is, then do what you got to do. Yeah. But I think it will be 5-point difference for a Leinster win. I think it's going to be so tight, to be honest. Do I go that? I'll go 29-24.
Yeah, we're similar enough mindsets, so me and you, Lindsay. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Can I throw something at you, Greg, if you don't mind, and Lindsay as well? It's like, because it's such a mad weekend. I was trying to even explain it to Katrina, my wife. I couldn't even get my head around how big a weekend of sport this is.
I know, we've Katie Taylor as well. Did anyone forget this? We start on Friday.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've Katie. Like, I was going to say, you have the PGA golf, you have the GAA football championship starts going against each other. The Premier League is nearly going to be decided as well, and then we have a Champions Cup, a Challenge Cup in Dublin, and then with the Katie Taylor fight. I was wondering, are you guys going to be tuning into Katie Taylor as well at the weekend after the Leinster game?
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully someone might throw a ticket and we can go. But yeah, no, I think she's going to be on around 10 o'clock that night. Liverpool got a good 3 points against Leicester last night, Mr. Manchester United, so that was a good thing. I think it's going to be an absolutely crazy weekend of sport, and I can't wait for it. Not too much into golf yet, but certainly from Friday right the way through. Yeah,
it'll be a beautiful weekend of sport. I actually think Katie Taylor is the best athlete to come out of Ireland, full stop. Men, women, old, young. I just think what she's done for sport in general, especially being Irish.
For boxing and
she's
female sport.
She's undisputed world champion and hasn't been beaten in donkeys, like.
And she's gone down a weight division, am I right for this, I think?
I think she's gone
light
up.
Featherweight?
Yeah.
She's definitely changing division this weekend.
Yeah.
What she's done is
Just,
amazing.
right, yeah.
Fair play. So hopefully she can get the win as well. But I do think Leinster deserve it. But both teams, La Rochelle and Leinster, rested a lot of people on the weekend. Obviously, we spoke about the Munster one, and Leinster lost. La Rochelle also rested a lot of players, and they lost to Montpellier, even though they have a home semi-final in the bag anyway, in top 14. So there's going to be two fresh squads going against each other in the Aviva Stadium. So it's going to be a big one. Hopefully there'll be the Irish fella out in the land on the La Rochelle side. So if it doesn't go the way we're thinking, there might be one Irish guy lifting the trophy.
Like
and Rog, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know.
I've told Jason this year, because he did a pitch invasion last year after they beat La Rochelle beat Leinster, and he was on the pitch with Donncha Ryan and Rog. I was like, no pitch invasions this year now, Jason, because I think he's going along with, he's doing behind the scenes stuff with BT Sport again. Very lucky there. Like, so I've just told him, no matter what happens, stay on that sideline there. Like, but don't be surprised if you see a Munster jersey running on again if it all goes wrong.
Jason, go for it.
Yes, take your moment, Jason. I do think one massive thing, obviously, that La Rochelle have in their backroom staff is Rog. And he's going to come up with some sort of play, some sort of plan to come against Leinster, because he would have watched the Munster game and be like, oh, that's how they got them there, that's how they got them there, on top of what he's already figured out about how to break down Leinster. So is that a worry, do you think, Lindsay?
Yeah, hugely. I think, damn you anyway in your crystal ball, because on the way driving in here I was like, do you know what, were they in cahoots with Rog prior to that semi-final? Because they did play Leinster's game against Leinster. Like, they double tackled, they stopped the ball, they stopped any offloads, they won the gain line both sides, defence and attack, as we said earlier in the show, and it was just a different mentality. They're kicking, their turnovers, they just were a different team. And the depth that came in with the Wychleys, Jack O'Donoghue, they lost Jean Klein, they lost Peat O'Mahony early on. They just were different. They just had this galvanised belief about them, and I think that was the key they went into with all the interviews I heard. It was just about belief. And the fact that Mr. Crowley was so calm in his post-match, I was like, you knew you were going to win. Damn you.
Yeah, I think the other thing Munster have that La Rochelle won't have is Munster have that local derby grit, like the younger brother, like underdog kind of vibe that they would have wanted to prove themselves. France-Ireland,
like that's what I think will shine through for Roger. I think that's where he'll kind of be poking the French bear, saying, no, this is, France.
Yeah, but the thing with that is not many of the French lads play with La Rochelle. You see, they won't have that like experience of getting beat in the Grand Slam by Ireland, They wouldn't be like, oh, they are French. That might
no, I suppose just the sense of rivalry. I think he will still, Kerr Barlow then, you're not back in the international, prove them. Like, he'll just find the key to unlock everyone's inner beast. Do you know what I mean?
It's going to be an interesting one for sure. I can't wait for it.
If your crystal ball fails this week and we lose, that's it.
I'm just trying to use this crystal ball for Leinster. Here you go, because I like you too. You're my. Yeah.
I know.
As long as it's an Irish team, I'm happy.
I know.
And then we have Bryan Habana's old side, Toulon, going up against Glasgow Warriors on Friday night in the Challenge Cup, and you mentioned Pat. Mad fact that you pulled up is that it's Toulon's 5th Challenge Cup final, and they've lost all the other 4.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is nuts.
I feel like being back in a Dublin jersey, we went through so many losses. How do you come back? Surely it's this time. Surely this weekend is their time.
Yeah. You again, like Greg mentioned that, it's like a PlayStation team a couple of weeks ago. Like I was actually saying, I was looking back at Bryan Habana's career, and that 2014-2015 Toulon side was absolutely insane. But yeah, they're not quite as star-studded as them, but they're stacked full of talent as well. So if they have if they can finally get over the hump and kind of get there as well.
They got crazy, Dan Bigger, Colby. They're star-studded.
Olivon, they have
Olivon,
they're huge. They've
the French
an incredible team, and another mad stat before we start wrapping up the show, Pat, that you came up with was only 5 teams have ever won a semi-final game away from home in the URC. Tadhg Byrne has been a starter on 3 of those teams. Isn't that crazy? What is it about Tadhg Byrne that just gets it done in semi-finals away?
Yeah, do you know what? He was another. I was like, damn you for coming back from injury. Do you know, the weekend he did all the key areas. Like, he was just his usual self, to be honest. And he just goes about his business so under the radar, but is so key and efficient. And even at set piece, just winning lineouts and winning turnovers. And I think he, when we talk about those romantic stages in life where that love that got away, Leinster are kicking themselves. They let that go.
I got on to him because I remember his season was supposed to be over. Like Keith Earls, his season was supposed to be over, and I got on to him a few weeks ago and it said, would you be able to come on to House of Rugby before the season's out? And he was just like, maybe not. Just the timing's not great at the moment. And I was thinking, because Munster were this is when before they went to South Africa, they were losing a few games. He's like, timing's not great. Give me a shout. I might come on soon. Little did I know he was planning to come back, and then he came back and absolutely brilliant when he got back again. And what a class player, a guy who's going to quit rugby to go and do a kind of business or economics, kind of get into that kind of line of work, and then just an agent reached out to him and said, do you want me to try and find you a club? Ended up in Scarlets. I think Aaron Shingler had a baby was due, so he got thrown in to play a game. Never looked back. Incredible.
So you got mad rugby stories. I heard one on the weekend so I was working at the Toulouse Sevens. I was commentating for the first time.
You were great, by the way. Congrats.
Thank you so much. I was very nervous doing it now, because you're exposed and that's it, and it's your sport, it's your passion. You have to know what you're talking about, and getting the names right and stuff. Yeah. But I was what's called a second voice. You've done it a couple of times.
It's nice to feed off someone else.
There's a lead commentator that does play by play, and then you just kind of drop in your opinion. So it actually wasn't even.
You had a little moment with Jordan.
I had a little moment with my boy Jordan Conroy. So he looked straight at the camera. But a mad story is there's a guy who plays on the wing for New Zealand called Solo. His surname's Solo, which is a cool surname. Away. And in the final, he went around Marcus Moneta, who's the top try scorer in the world. Went around him twice. And this young guy Solo, he played New Zealand under 20s, and then he did his ACL. which is one of the worst injuries you can get in the sport, out for at least 9 months. And he was coming back from that after playing New Zealand 20s and was only playing like local club rugby. And he got Clark Laidlaw's number. Clark Laidlaw is the head coach of the New Zealand Sevens, and texted him and was like, any chance I can have a shot? How do I make it into the New Zealand Sevens team? And Clark Laidlaw rang him back and said, all right, come in for a session, we'll see what you're like. He came in, and now he scored the 2 tries in the final of the Clue Sevens and is arguably one of the best players in Sevens rugby now, playing on the wing for New Zealand.
Oh my God.
Incredible. Like, to just have
twist of fate.
But just taking your shot, like, just like, he had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And now and he was incredible. I think he got player of the final and everything. And the thing with New Zealand Sevens is it's used as a stepping stone to go back into Super Rugby and into the All Blacks team. Like, so he'll probably end up going the whole way now.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? That's a nice way to always have a door open, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's really, really cool. Yeah.
Both men's and women's New Zealand teams won.
They did. They did. Yeah. Both series are decided now. Both New Zealand, obviously, and then Argentina Sevens have qualified for the Olympics, and France, obviously, because it's on in France. And then the Irish women qualified, and we mentioned it earlier. And we just want to give, obviously, them that never stop competing moment of the week together at Bank of Ireland. Just seeing the women win that was just incredible. We've Mr. Bryan Habana trying to sneak back in here now. Yeah. do we want to jump back in?
Unless he wants to sing the aisle with us.
We're just wrapping up here now. We're finishing up. But do you want to come in and give your predictions for the European final?
Take my seat. I'll get out of here.
You did great, Pat, though. Thank you.
Subbed off. The sub who was subbed back off. Super sub. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
So we just quickly went through the European finals that are coming on this weekend.
Yes.
And we're looking ahead to La Rochelle and Leinster, obviously. And they're both rested too. They basically put out their B squads this weekend. La Rochelle lost away to Montpellier. Leinster lost to Munster, as we mentioned. But they're both going to be fully stacked this weekend. Cool. How do you see it going? We all made our predictions.
100%. I mean, I understand the Champions Cup is obviously the creme de la creme, but we haven't spoken about Challenge Cup. I mean, Toulon are...
And we're going to go to Toulon as well, yeah.
We mentioned that it's their 5th final. They've lost the previous 4, so we're hoping they might get over the line this week.
Again, 100%. La Rochelle, again, I think what they did last year under ROG was just absolutely brilliant. If the big boys step up, I'm not quite sure if Will Skelton's going to be ready. And there's sort of talks that he might be injured, might not be injured. So, but if he comes on, you can imagine it's going to be a big bruising. I just honestly believe that the starting, Leinster team, basically the Irish team. No disrespect to the Munster boys, but yeah, I think the Leinster have just got too much at the Aviva. You feel a capacity crowd. There will be quite a few travelling La Rochelle supporters, which will be great. There might be a few travelling Munster supporters wearing La Rochelle jerseys.
You can guarantee it, let me tell you.
At the Aviva. I'm here with CJ Stander as well at the moment, and I think he's already got his La Rochelle jersey on for the weekend. So I just do think Leinster have got too much. I think what the Irish lads did with the Six Nations, the Grand Slam win was incredible. They'll be feeding off that confidence. Get up by the likes of Johnny's not playing, but they want to send him off in style, and he'll be in the stand somewhere, not maybe on the bench, maybe in the.
Where do you think are the key areas? Like if Leinster are going to win it, where do you think they're going to beat La Rochelle and vice versa? If that's not
so
too
if we look at again the URC last weekend where they slipped up, is that ability to allow momentum for the opposition side. So defensively, to stop the offloads, La Rochelle literally throw things from anywhere. I mean, we saw UJ Satuini like that offload, and in the semi-final was just mind-blowing. So it is about stopping the momentum, but stopping the ability for La Rochelle to play in terms of getting the ball. I mean, if Botte gets on the field, you need to bring them down. I think TJ Pernara has been Karbala has just been phenomenal in his bossing around. So you feel that if they get the momentum in terms of the physical combat,
and the confidence, really, because he had another out the back pass in the semi-final against Exeter. I was like, that's just rude. 2 tries that day.
2 tries that day. So he's key to the La Rochelle cause. But I think they'll just go in like last year. Everyone's going to be writing them off, and I think there could be an upset. But that being said, I just think at the Aviva, Leinster wanting to end the season off well, send Johnny off on a great note. I think a handful of points, but I'm going to go Leinster win.
So me and Lindsay's thought as well.
We went by 5, close enough, didn't we?
We want to ask you.
Where did Greg go? Where did you go?
I said Leinster by just what did I say, 24-15 or something like that. So Leinster by a couple of points.
I said 29-24. Leinster.
I don't want to go scores. I think there's going to be a handful of points in it, which will hopefully mean that I think if La Rochelle are within a handful of points with 4 minutes to go,
this is my fear. It'll be another drop goal moment or something. Like last minute try. Like, please.
No.
Well, I want to ask the mindset around all this, Brian. So in the last 2 years, La Rochelle have beaten Leinster in the semi-final 2 years ago, in the final last year. Munster just beat Leinster in the semi-final. So would that mindset help tune Leinster in, being like, okay, we really have to get ourselves together now for this final? Or do you think that's going to be a monkey on their back that's just holding them back and they can't get over that line?
So we're talking about the Champions Cup? We're talking about Ireland not progressing past the quarterfinals of a World Cup. Sorry, where are we going?
Oh, you went.
Sorry, where are we going? Sorry, you're talking about the psyche. Sorry.
Open that door. He has to leave again.
So do I have to leave again? Sorry.
Ireland, South Africa is
23rd of September. Here we go.
Gloves are off,
joking. I think it's set up for an incredible Rugby World Cup. But we are talking Champions Cup. I honestly think, and I think it's the confidence that I've seen from particularly the Leinster boys in the Six Nations and what they did in that Grand Slam. And you get to a point where it's not a monkey on your back. You have to just go out there and deliver the goods. And what better an opportunity to do it in front of mostly your home supporters at the Aviva. And I just think the Leinster lads will be up for that. They won't be thinking about the previous years. For them, it'll all be about living in this moment, capitalising on an opportunity that might not ever, cross their paths again. And I think with that confidence, that's hopefully come now through to the Six Nations. Yes, they lost last week, but I don't think they'll take too less of a confidence given what happened in the URC, semi-final, because it was an unstructured way of what we normally see from Leinster. So
it would be, though, a catastrophe, really, thinking about it, wouldn't it? Because they've built, since Stuart Lancaster, came in after his disaster tenure with England, he has revolutionised Leinster rugby. BOD would have said that in his interview as well, just the amount of investment, the amount of development, everything that feeds into Leinster. Structure. This team, actually, boys, you will never be together again. I think Nick McCarthy has talked about going to the States because he's now USA qualified. Stuart himself will move on to Racing. We've obviously Jacques Nienaber coming in to help out. So there will be that transition time. Obviously, great stock and has done great things. So we're looking forward to that. But this team won't be together again. Johnny Sexton will retire. So it is, we've all been there. There are these small defining moments. You either grasp them with two hands or you do not. And you still carry scars of those losses more than the wins.
And not only that, they don't want to get too far from a star collection behind Toulouse. So they would have been disappointed losing it last year, and they'd want to put another star on that jersey. That fifth star would be absolutely incredible.
Equal to lose,
equal to lose, and get their powerhouse dominance of European rugby. So, I mean, if they do, it'll be catastrophic. Not in terms of what it means, but I think for these players that have given so much, that have come through this tenor, never have this opportunity again. You're leaving, so it'll be catastrophic in terms of the expectation. They're not living up to it. But you just feel there's something brimming appropriately in this Leinster team to do something historic and get that fifth star, in my opinion.
No, I'm having a Greg moment. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. I'm going to feed my inner Greg.
They deserve it as well, because they've been at the top of the European game for the last couple of years and they have nothing really to show for it. They keep losing at the final hurdle. I do want to see it because of the Irish side as well. And La Rochelle have enough cups now. It's Leinster's turn again.
So nothing against Ronan O'Gara as an Irish lad playing.
But Ronan's done his bit now. But I think I also said when you were gone there for a couple of minutes, I was like, the only thing that La Rochelle have in their back room that really scares me in a Leinster perspective is Rog and his mindset and picking out how to beat them. And Munster just showed another couple of reasons how to beat Leinster as well.
I know they were on that phone to him.
Do you think?
Yeah, they absolutely were. Crystal ball and phone calls. That's what happened last week.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Another game on just before it is your old club Toulon playing against Glasgow Warriors on Friday night in the Challenge Cup. Fifth final Challenge Cup final Toulon are in. You've lost the other four, Brian. What's going on like?
I never played Challenge Cup.
Get that out there.
Get it out there. I never played the Challenge Cup. No, I mean, they've been thereabouts. I think last year, again, very much like Leinster going into the Aviva. I think going up the road to the Velodrome last year against a Lyon side that was thereabouts, but not really. Then we had like Joshua Tusalva, Pierre Mignoni, sort of orchestrating this incredible win. And I thought it was the amount of Toulon supporters that were in the Velodrome that Friday night last year. I thought, even before the game, I said, let's just sign, let's just put their name on the trophy. But again, credit to Lyon, very much like La Rochelle, came in all odds stacked against them and took a somewhat inexperienced Toulon side and just absolutely dominated them. Glasgow this season have also, under Franco Smith, have done some great things. I chatted to Ryan Wilson as well, and I mean, someone that's been institutional like him's not in the pickings, because Franco's running a different direction and he's galvanised this Glasgow side brilliantly. Would the travel have affected Toulon, you think? They haven't gone too well in the top 14. I think it's mid-table, 7th or 8th at the moment, so they haven't qualified for Champions Cup again next season, which means this is their only opportunity to get into a Champions Cup, and it's been a hiatus of a number of years, which is unbeknown to a star-studded. But then you have the likes of a Gabin Villiers back, Cheslin Colby's back, Charles Olivon is playing some brilliant rugby again, coming back from injury.
Parisi has been turned back to years.
At 40 years old, I mean, the 83 generation was a class generation, but as the 83 generation goes, Sergio Parisi is without a doubt the king on top of that mountain. So, with my heart, I'm really hoping that Toulon can pitch up. And they've had some incredible games at the Viva previously, beating Leinster, in a few of the Champions Cups that we got to play in over here. They beat Clermont in that final in 2013 to start that European dominance with the very infamous Dylan Armitage hand up in the air before scoring the try, which was at the Viva. So they'll probably recall some of those historic moments. And we were actually in Toulon a few weeks ago for the opening of the Hall of Fame, and there does seem a really good buzz about the side. I think they want to let go of the shackles of the past and start creating new memories, new legacies, because it's literally been an 8-year trophyless
it's probably not good enough for a club of that calibre yet.
So I'm going to go Toulon. I'm actually going to think, if they do go, it'll be by more than a handful of points, and I think there'll be like an 8-point buffer in it. I'd love to see Cheslin Colby drop a drop kick over from 50 metres out like it in the top 14 final of 2021.
Wow,
but it's great to see Gabin Villiers back. They got some real class out the back. Their forwards are dominating physically.
Bigger's playing well as well.
Bigger's playing well. I mean, kudos to him. I mean, his French is absolutely brilliant for season 1, and he's putting the rest of us to shame. We were there for a long time. But you just feel there's a bit of consistency in how they're going. A few flair players at the back, but some real brutes up front, which will hopefully go well for them. So with my heart and maybe a bit with my head, I'm going to go Toulon by 8.
Yeah, I agree with you. For sure.
Yeah, I think we're all going Toulon, are we?
It's going to be an amazing weekend of rugby for sure. And sport in general. We have Katie Taylor fighting as well in Dublin. You might get along to that.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. So I'll just be at the Viva. What time is that on?
It's after the Leinster.
10 o'clock, I think. She's there's a few undercards starting at 5, so she's just
How far is it from the Aviva?
It's actually not far. She's in the 3 Arena, so just across the river.
She's Bryan Habana's Instagram now on Sunday night. I think Katie Taylor.
I mean, we saw Francois Hougaard on the poker table with Conor McGregor. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
A few weeks ago, I was like, "Hey!"
And I think Conor McGregor is he's loaded tickets for this fight, if I'm led to believe his social media, and he's one of the.
He's just handing them out, is he?
Yeah. Well, no, he was doing a competition, and sure, he met Eddie Hearn, I think, in his pub there yesterday. Okay. So yeah.
But I mean, you got courtside. I mean,
yeah, he's inviting us. Me and Pat are going.
There's an official invitation. So I'm asking, is there how many spares have you got?
I have no tickets just yet, but I'm hoping to get some.
If anyone has any tickets to throw, Bryan Habana's way, myself, Greg's, and Pat's, we're welcome. We're available.
I'm actually going to be over at the London Sevens. Yeah, I'm going over
so we can get your tickets in.
Yeah, I'm probably filling your space because you're over here, so I'm doing your job over in London.
That's cute.
That's very cute.
Yeah, teamwork.
Opening up the red polo gang for you. That's how we go.
That's it. Yeah, spare red polo for me. You brought it up there. The World Cup, little matter coming up this September, October time. Death pool. Ireland, Scotland, South Africa. How do you see it going? Ireland are number 1 in the world. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it now.
100%.
South Africa are the reigning champs.
South Africa are the reigning champs. You do feel that side of the draw. 2 of the top 4 teams in the world don't get through to a semi-final. 3 of the top 5 don't get through to a semi-final, given the fact that the draw was done 3 years ago, obviously for logistical reasons and all the whatnot. But you look at France, 12 out of 12 last year.
A new record for them.
A new record for them, unbeaten, I think first time since the 70s, which is incredible. Led impeccably well by the likes of Anton Dupont, Sean Olivant, Damien Penaud. Can we please just have a minute to talk about how a brilliant rugby player he is at the moment? Absolutely incredible.
And
Thomas Ramos, I mean, the skill set, I mean, the calmness with which he does things. I mean, that kick in the Champions Cup.
The kick pass.
The kick pass.
I'm like, oh my God.
And I think that was the key to us winning when he went off for his yellow card. I was like, see ya, thanks very much. Bye.
Debatable yellow card.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, you're controversial since your return.
No, I think we're lined up for what, in my opinion, is going to be the toughest World Cup to win. And the reason I'm saying that, you have your top 4 teams battling out to get into a semi-final. You have Eddie Jones, who's now moved to Australia, a renowned World Cup coach specialist in terms of what he's done. In Australia 03, he was with us in 07 with the Springboks, caused that upset in Brighton in 2015, that ridiculous win against the All Blacks in 2019. Yes, so Eddie's a astute Rugby World Cup coach. How England let him go and then allow him to coach Australia.
And he'll come back to bite them, I think.
Might come back to bite them.
Bit.
And I mean, a lot of Eddie's success comes in that first year tenor. A lot of the success comes in that first year tenor. So it's going to be interesting. But you rightly say, Ireland, given their dominance in the Grand Slam, yes, there might be one or two injury concerns. But you go into this World Cup as the number one team in the world. You beat South Africa, showed France in a winning streak how they cannot get ahead of themselves. I think the French in France are going to be hectically under pressure. It isn't without a doubt in my mind the fact that this is the best French team we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And not just 1 to 15, almost like 1 to 30. Those guys that Fabien Galtier has brought in. So it's tasty. Again, with my heart, I really hope that South Africa going in very much under the radar.
That's a scary thing, though, that South Africa kind of gone quiet and Rassie Erasmus is doing something down there.
I mean, we didn't get Nigel
Owens. Plotting something.
So there's but again, our biggest distraction is the fact that our club rugby is being played in the Northern Hemisphere. Our international rugby is being played in the Southern Hemisphere with the Rugby Championships and how that goes. We play Wales and the All Blacks up in the Northern Hemisphere ahead of the tournament. So, I mean, I think they're over in Europe and the UK for 10 weeks, so they go all the way through to a final, which is a long...
You have nice test matches. Who are we playing? They announced one last week. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Samoa as well, Wales, maybe. So I think that's for us. So under the radar. Again, we also have one or two key injuries. We saw Captain Inspirational Sia Khaleesi go down a few weeks ago.
Back?
I actually saw him 2 weeks ago, and seems very confident.
Yeah, I'm not writing that fella off. I think he's
definitely,
just...
Yeah, I think there's a lot about him mentally, inspirationally that will hopefully have. But under the radar, which I think is really good, and that's where they love to be. Where there was a lot of controversy off the field last year, from various aspects for the South African team, and there hasn't been much this year, which I think is great. There's been a lot of preparation camps. I think it'd be stupid to write off the All Blacks.
Oh my God! Yeah.
I think it'd be super. So it is going to be the toughest World Cup to win. However you go at. With my heart, I'm ominously hoping that the South African team, would be able to do something special. It's going to be a tough route to get to actually then win this World Cup. But you feel the confidence that Ireland have got now at the moment. Yes, again, they've beaten South Africa, they've beaten New Zealand. I mean, the series win in New Zealand last year was probably one of the most incredible performances I've seen by any team in New Zealand in rugby history. And then back that up, beating the French this year, you think that there's a lot of good things. So the pressure the French are going to be on is going to be tough. Again, Ireland, number one team in the world heading into 2019, then also lost to Japan. So hopefully that's not a monkey on their back. But you almost feel with your head, it's almost Ireland's and France's to lose, given the fact that they're the number 1 and 2 team in the world at the moment. But hopefully with my heart under the radar, the Springboks and Garden create more history by winning back-to-back.
Oh my God!
Oh, you heard it here first.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's an incredible amount of rugby we've all ahead of us. Yeah, and we want to thank you, Mr. Bryan Habana, for coming in.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
It's been an honour. Lindsay, thank you as always for your expertise.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh my!
Just to make sure I actually genuinely like that Munster are back.
Thank you. And you wanted me to sing the Oil, I believe.
Yeah, let's go.
Munster won. Do you know what the Oil is?
No, what is that?
Well, Pat, you come back on for this now. Hold on, I get my words out. I'm not a singer. I'm a fighter.
Is all the Munster?
The Oil is Shannon RC, which is my local club, and a Munster song that I said I'd sing if Munster won the game. But you don't have to sing it because I can just sing it out if you want.
Well, yeah. Do you know?
I'll just stay here then for it.
Yeah, come on.
Are you going to do
it? Like a concert.
Do you want us to wait?
Just want to thank Bank of Ireland as well, our partners and proud supporters of the 4 Irish provinces. We'll be back on Monday, hopefully after a Leinster win. All right?
Yep.
There is an Isle.
There is an Isle.
A bonny Isle.
A bonny Isle.
Stands proudly from the sea. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Greg,
I think we'll stick to chatting.
You've got a lot going for you.
Not of singing voice.
Your singing voice, like mine, deserves to stay in the shower.
Would you like to give us any Springbok song, any club songs, anything?
Club songs? No, I'm a guy.
Are you sure?
I had a few appearances in karaoke bars in Japan in 2019.
We heard rumour that you were good. You've left a legacy there.
You know what I do though? Say, stop. Collaborate and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly, flows like hawk through daily and nightly. Will it us up? Yo, I don't know. Now we're in Ireland. Let's glow.
Oh. Sorry, can you drop these mics?
Let's finish on that. That was beautiful. All right, we'll catch you next week, guys. Thanks a million.
Bye. Peace out.
Joe presents House of Rugby, United Rugby Championship, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.